let's talk about the single highest leverage point in off-market mobile home park acquisitions. It's that first call, that very first conversation with an owner. I mean, this is the moment where a potential seven-figure deal is either created or it dies a quiet death right there on the phone. Today, we're going to break down the playbook that turns that call from a messy game of chance into a repeatable science. We're talking the exact scripts, the psychology behind them, and the frameworks you need to actually get these deals done.
All right, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First up, we'll dive into what we call the 60-second failure point. It's why most investors just completely blow it right out of the gate. Then, we'll get into the right mindset, shifting from pitching to evaluating. After that, it's all tactics, baby. The perfect opening script, how to read the four main seller types, mastering the conversation when they throw objections at you, and finally, how to end the call so there's always a next step. Let's get into it.
So let's set the stage. The guide makes this incredible point right up front. Most deals are not lost in the negotiation over price. They are completely lost in the first minute of that first cold call. And it's not because people aren't ambitious, it's because they have absolutely no structure.
Oh, 100%. You have to put yourself in the owner's shoes. They're busy. They've probably gotten calls like this before. So while you're fumbling around saying, well, I was just calling to see, they've already mentally put you in the time waster box. Their guard is up, and that window of opportunity just slammed shut. You're basically dead on arrival.
And look, this isn't random. These failures are predictable. This table lays out the 5 big ones. You didn't do your homework, so you can't answer a simple question. You come in with the wrong energy, either sounding desperate like you need the deal or arrogant like you're doing them a favor. You have no structure, so the call just wanders aimlessly until they get bored. You talk way too much and never let them reveal their pain points. And the biggest one of all, you get to the end of the call and you have no clear next step, so it just fizzles out. This whole playbook is designed to be the antidote to every single one of these. So how do we fix this? How do we avoid those 5 mistakes? Well, it all starts with a really profound shift in your mindset. You are not calling to sell someone on selling. You're not calling to pitch. You are calling to evaluate. And just changing that one word, your objective, it changes the entire dynamic of the call.
Exactly. This slide says it all. The amateur is trying to get the deal. They're focused on getting the price, impressing the owner, pitching their company. That's not your job. The professional has one and only one objective, to determine if alignment exists. That's it. You're not a salesperson, you're more like a detective just gathering clues to see if there's even a case to be made here. And when you adopt that mindset, it naturally creates the right energy. Calm, direct, neutral. The guide uses this incredible analogy. You're like a doctor doing an intake. You're not frantically trying to convince the patient they're sick. You're calmly asking questions, you're assessing the situation, and you're trying to figure out if you can even help them. That energy just screams competence, and it does it without a hint of arrogance. It's a total game changer.
And here's the tool to get you there. This is your pre-call ritual. Before you dial, you just say this to yourself, out loud if you have to. I'm not excited. I'm not intimidated. I'm evaluating. It centers you. It keeps you from getting all giddy and desperate if they sound motivated, and it keeps you from getting steamrolled if you're talking to some big shot operator. You are there to evaluate, period.
Okay, so we've got the mindset locked in. Now, let's get into the nitty-gritty tactics. What do you actually say in those first 30 seconds? Because this is where the rubber meets the road, and the playbook is super specific here.
Let's break this down line by line because every word here is doing heavy lifting. You start with, "Hi, Mr. Smith, I'll keep this brief." What does that do? It immediately respects their time. It signals you're a professional, not a rambler. Then, "I was calling about your mobile home park on Main Street." This proves you've done at least a little bit of homework. You're not just a robocaller. And finally, "Did I catch you at an okay time for a quick question?" That is pure gold. It's permission-based, it gives them control, and makes them feel safe. It's just a masterclass in lowering their defenses.
And after that opener, this right here, this is the golden question. It's the key that unlocks the whole conversation. Just curious, is that something you'd ever consider selling, or is it more of a long-term hold? Notice how low pressure that is. Ever consider is so hypothetical. And then you give them an easy out. The long-term hold option lets them say no without feeling rude. It forces them to categorize themselves for you. It's brilliant.
And their answer tells you everything you need to know about your next move. If they say, "I'd consider it for the right price," okay, you got motivation, but they're gonna anchor high. Be ready for that. If they say, "You know, I've thought about it," that's your invitation to gently ask, "Oh yeah, what's got you thinking about it?" If you hear "depends on the offer," ding, 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 they're testing you. Do not give them a number.
Your job is to gather info, not make a blind offer. And even if they say absolutely not, it's not over. You just pivot to, no problem at all. Would you mind if I check back in with you in 6 months or so?
So once you get past that opening, the game moves to the next level. It's about reading the person on the other end of the line. The playbook breaks this down into 4 key seller types, and your job is to figure out who you're talking to within that first minute.
First up is the guarded operator. You know this person. Short, clipped answers. A skeptical tone. They're probably thinking, who is this guy and what does he want? You have to understand, they've been burned by flaky wholesalers and time wasters. So what do? You slow down, you match their pace, and you call it out. Just say, I'm sure you get a lot of calls like this. It shows you get it, and it builds instant rapport.
Then you've got the total opposite, the proud builder. For this person, the park isn't just an asset on a spreadsheet, it's their baby. It's their life's work. They'll tell you stories about when they first bought it. For them, the numbers are secondary. The first thing you need to do is show respect for their legacy. You don't talk about a sale, you talk about a transition. You ask them about the early days. You let them tell their story. That's how you build trust.
Oh, and then there's my favorite buying signal, the fatigued owner. You can hear it in their voice. They'll let out a little sigh. They'll use words like headache, tenants, toilets. They are just tired. They're burnt out. Your job here isn't to be a cheerleader. It's to be a problem solver. You just listen. You let them vent. You validate their frustrations and gently position yourself as the source of relief they've been looking for.
And finally, you have the analytical seller. This person is all business. They're going to hit you with questions about cap rates and expense ratios in the first 90 seconds. There is zero room for fluff here. You have to be direct, be precise with your numbers, and if you don't know something, don't you dare guess. Just say, that's a great question, let me get that for you, and follow up. They respect competence above all else, and they will dismiss you in a heartbeat if they sense you're unprepared. Okay, so you've nailed the opening, you've identified the seller type, now we're getting into the advanced stuff. This is about handling objections and controlling the flow of the conversation. This is what really separates the pros from the amateurs. The big takeaway here is that an objection isn't a no, it's a request for more information. Look at these reframes. They say, your offer's too low. The amateur argues. The pro says, okay, thanks for sharing that. Help me understand what I might be missing in my numbers. See the difference? They say, how do I know you're legit? You don't get defensive. You say, great question. I'd be happy to provide proof of funds and references from other owners I've worked with. You lean into the objection instead of fighting it. And now for what might be the single most powerful and most uncomfortable tool in this whole playbook. Silence. After you ask a tough question, or after they give you a vague answer about price, just be quiet. Don't say anything. Let the silence hang there. I promise you, 99% of the time, they will be the one to break it, and they'll fill that silence with really, really valuable information. It shows you're confident and not in a rush.
All right, we're bringing it home. You can do everything else right, but if you hang up the phone without a clear next step, you've just wasted everyone's time. A conversation without a next step is just a friendly chat. That's why the guide gives us these soft close scripts. They ensure every single call moves the ball forward.
And this is absolutely critical. You have to match your closer to their temperature. If they're showing strong interest, you say, based on our conversation, would you be open to me sending over a preliminary offer for you to look at? If it's just mild interest, maybe you say, how about I run some initial numbers and follow up if it looks like we're in the same ballpark? If they're not ready, you ask permission to follow up. Even a hard no has a next step. You thank them for their time and you leave that door wide open for the future. Every call must end with a clear, defined action. So when you boil this entire playbook down, it really comes to these 3 core truths. Your reputation compounds. Every professional call you make, even the ones that go nowhere, builds your brand in the market. Pressure always backfires. Trying to force a deal just pushes good owners away. And finally, clarity closes. A clear, professional, respectful process is what builds the trust you need to get these off-market deals done. So the only question left is, on your next call, who are you going to be?